All right, number two. Here's number one for comparison. So these look very similar. Once again, the only thing I really have to work with on this one is dusting off a little bit more in the heart and the back, but really I'm just going to be focusing on scraping more out of the tip. Okay, so there's some bark left in the middle of the heart. I'm just going to dust that off first. And I'm going to be taking this cane out of the windows anyway, so I'm actually going to go ahead and do it now. I usually don't like to wait to scrape the windows like a lot of people do, but I know I'm going to take out the cane anyway. So I think the heart actually serves a much more important function than just tone quality. I really think it adds a lot of restraint to the reed, and that kind of restraint gives you a lot of control. I think that actually contributes to it contributes to your tone quality a lot, but it contributes to your response and making sure you don't sound too blatty basically when you play, which would be no good. Okay, same thing with the last string. I'm going to start with just the very top of the tip and take these very short scrapes out. Normally when I do this, the top of the tip will start to fray a little bit. Well, yeah, it did a little bit here. And I usually don't worry about that too much, especially if it's about 2 millimeters longer than what I'm going to finish the reed at, because I'll cut it off anyway. But if you can avoid having a fray at the top, that's probably better. So basically my knife is sharp enough that I'm only using the weight of the knife to press down on the reed. I'm not actively pressing down on the reed at all. There's no tension in my wrist or my hand. And so luckily this knife is sharp enough that I can just let the weight of the knife do all the work. And this is just a feature knife, so it's not even a heavy knife. Okay, I'm going to move a little bit lower. Yeah, I'm going to clip that portion off anyway, but I should try to make sure it doesn't get too much lower. Right up here. Yeah, this side of the tip got a little bit messy and a little sloppy, so I'm going to try to smooth that over and even it out a little bit. Okay, it responds a lot quicker, it's flat and a little stuffy. So the vibrations are kind of just stopping at the tip, they're not going all the way down to the heart and the window. So first I'm just going to clip it. Look at the pitch up. Starting to get some lows in the crows, but I want the vibrations to go from the tip to the heart, so I'm just going to scrape out the very top of the heart a little bit. Okay, that's a little bit better. Still going to scrape a little bit more out of the entire heart now. Just a hair. Alright. So right now this reed feels a little bit too close for me. So there's two things I can do about that. If I scrape more out of the windows and basically dig into the windows, it'll actually make the reed feel more open when you play notes. So that's good for fast articulated sections like the fast part of La Scala or Mendelssohn 3. Also maybe add a little bit more separation between the tip and the heart, which will help with that too. And then the other thing I want to do is clip the reed to make it shorter. And that'll actually make the reed feel more open because, yeah, so because I have a reed that has a taper to it from the bark down to the top of the tip, there's a small diminuendo. If you can imagine just cutting a little bit off of this section, it'll leave you with a more open part of the reed. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so first I'm going to scrape a little bit more out of the windows, and I'm going to let the pitch go down a little bit so I can clip it up to pitch. And once again, this is just to make the opening feel a little bit more stable and more pronounced so I can do fast articulated sections. It's still a little bit stuffy, so I'm going to scrape a little bit out of the very bottom of the tip. And I'm going to go a little bit closer to the middle. But I'm still going to avoid scraping down the exact middle of the tip. I kind of want to leave a spine going up the tip. But if I can clear out just a little bit more cane, then I think it'll be a little bit easier to play. Okay, so the lows are coming a lot more easily now. Now I'm going to clip it. Okay, so it plays. I'm still not in love with this reed. I don't know how the recording quality is going to come out. It might sound the exact same as the last one, but it doesn't quite play quite as easily. And what I notice is that this reed is about a full millimeter longer than I usually make them, so I'm actually just going to clip that portion off and kind of start over a little bit. Probably should have done this in the first place. Okay, because I clipped a lot off, I'm going to have to scrape the very top of the tip a little bit more. So I like having some guideline measurements, basically approximate measurements that I go by. So I usually make my reeds between 69 and 70 millimeters long. I know the heart's usually going to be about 40 hundredths of a millimeter thick. I know the back's going to be about 30 hundredths of a millimeter thick. And it's going to vary a little bit by reed to reed, but really, I've noticed it doesn't really vary all that much. So if something's wildly off, then you know exactly what to do. So this reed was a millimeter or longer than I usually make them, so that's what I look at. So looking at this through the camera, I don't really notice it quite as much as I do when I'm looking at it in front of me. The top of the heart's actually a little bit thicker than I normally leave it. It looks pretty smooth through the camera lens though. But I'm going to take a little bit more off the heart. And I'm just brushing off a little extra cane wherever I see it. Okay. Okay, to make it articulate a little bit more easily in the lower register, I'm going to take a little bit more out of sort of the bottom of the heart. You got to be careful because this will make the reed go flat very quickly. And I also noticed a little bit of extra cane at the very bottom of the window, so I'm going to scrape that out a little bit. So I'm still leaving about, that looks like 2 millimeters of bark at the very bottom of the reed. I should really just put it away for now, but I'm going to fuss a little bit more, work on the blend of the reed, so that's the very top of the heart and the bottom of the tip. I still feel a little bit of extra cane and a little bit of extra resistance coming from there. And then I'm putting this thing away. Okay, it's a working reed. It's not my favorite reed in the world, but yeah, it works.